You can be as loud as we need to be.
Okay, well, good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Why are you being so quiet?
I
He's being very soft.
I feel like I'm in a corporate
being
environment.
Very same environment where it was normally.
Yeah, but there's a lot of corporate stuff.
You know what? Whatever. Look,
Yeah.
look.
I'm polite, you know.
I'm not. Here's the, let's do this by the books, very polite. I'm the knockdown doers. I'm a mushroom cloud laying. I can't say that on this show.
No, you can't. You said too much. That's what he is.
Either way. You know, someone said to me the other day, they're like, oh yeah, I watch you guys all the time. Ron Head and Purple Hair, that's what they call you too. I'm like, Ron Head and Purple Hair.
That person's gonna hear from my lawyer. Because,
okay, so wait a second. So you gonna sue him for going in Ron Head for all the people we roast, I'm gonna sue us?
Well, they probably have to try to sue us, but we're protected by you.
Well, we did get, so one person did try, but you know, we finessed him. Either way, I digress. We Bruno Mars and Cardi B them. Hallelujah. Even though I don't really like Cardi B. Well, that's beside the point. Listen, we're going to talk about something a little different today. Not really different, but we're going to talk about something that has been a problem in Bermuda since, let's say, 1947.
Well, probably all the way before the sea venture, isn't it?
What year was Bermuda discovered? 1609? 1609? This has been a problem in Bermuda since 1609. Probably 1607 when Juan de Bermudez saw the island. But it was 1609. The sea got lost and got stuck here. So, you know, we don't know when one day came.
Yeah, we have just had a history. A long history.
A long prolific.
Losing money.
And not knowing where it goes.
Yeah, and I feel as though with the recent article coming out about, you know, our name being mentioned, being on the grey list internationally, and, you know, the British minister calling the overseas territories to come before him and to have all these hearings about, you know, being tax havens and missing money and money being parked in our country and other countries that, you know, it's kind of illegal.
Is Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and Gibraltar going to those meetings as well?
The funny thing about bigger economies is
because they are still territories of England. Everybody, a lot of people don't know that, but Canada, New Zealand, and Australia are still technically a part of the British Empire.
They are members of the Commonwealth, not the British Empire.
That's a fancy schmancy word for empire. They're like, oh, listen, we're terribly sorry for, you know, killing more people than Hitler and Genghis Khan combined. But we're going to make it look better. Oh, let me.
I feel like it's more like
Commonwealth just sounds more polite than
clique.
empire.
It's like a clique, and you know the bigger economists, they always look out for one another. It's like a gang almost. You know, they look the other way. They give each other, you know, belies, and then smaller economists that are smaller obviously get bullied.
But it will be a bunch of gangs that are bowing down to one bigger gang, because the Queen still appoints governors of Canada and Australia, and elections are still called in the name of the Queen, and it's still very regal.
Yeah,
the Queen even actually visits Canada more than any other territory because they are still a part of the empire.
I mean, yeah, for technicality's sake, let's just say, okay, that's true.
Yes.
But we, as Bermudians, I don't think we really take the time to understand how our economy really is the way it is, and how we really thrive off international business and not so much off of tourism, and how we are like one big fat purse that bails out everybody. And I feel like Bermudians, we've developed this xenophobia, we've developed this whole, you know, anti-big company, anti-foreign this, and it's really kind of how our country runs. And to know that we're on the grey list, I feel like we're spending all of this time, right, talking about same-sex marriage and talking about little things that could be solved like that, and we right now are facing being put on the blacklist. No, I know that our country wasn't necessarily one of those that was threatened with that, but we were put in the same category. Our names was lumped in that category. So it's almost like being that kid that doesn't smoke, but you know your name keeps coming out with the smoker. So you
hang around with the kids that smoke.
Yeah, eventually you're gonna get put in detention just because, you know, it's just how it gets. So it's something that we need to take into account.
It's like we're looking down the rabbit hole, but we haven't quite been pushed. We need to get away from it. And I think our mismanagement of money and our habit of losing money is not a good. It's not a good look, man.
Sam's 360.
Oh, don't even get me started. That's literally just the cherry on top of the crap cake.
So, you know what really hurts me? I was in the year. I went to Sam's. Hallelujah. I was in the year.
You're showing your age.
I was in the year, right? We did all the fundraising, the bake sales, and all of that, and we practically raised most of that money. That was the initial investment.
How much money did you raise? Do you remember?
Nope, I'm old. But I know that we were busting our butt in my M3 year to finance for that. So you know what I think? I feel like if you're not giving out duplicate payments by error and don't know how that happened, and turns out you give me a duplicate payment. Give me my money back.
Like accidentally give somebody $807,000
by error.
How does that work?
Well, I believe that it works like this.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like a small payment of $1 million.
Yeah. You sneeze and you hit duplicate by mistake. And when you sneeze, the duplicate button just happens to be on your right. So it's achoo. And then it's
man, we accidentally just spent $807,000 to give to some people.
But you know what, Sid? It
that
was
is
just
a lot of money.
But it was discovered by the Auditor General. How many years later? So it's like...
Well, you think those people that got those money, do you think they're going to be like, hey, you made a mistake. Sorry, you messed up and you accidentally gave me $807 million.
And one of them was my old principal at Sands, Mr. Bassett. I can't believe that. I can't believe this man he ruled my palm.
I don't know if that money went to him.
It didn't go to him.
I don't think that's how it works.
They were running Sands 360 though.
Understandable, but at the same time, it's just very odd because that's I mean, there's that, then there's the $800 million that everybody keeps bringing out. No one even knows what that is.
Yeah.
Then everybody's saying, oh, the money that we spent on America's Cup, where did that go? The money that we made from America's Cup, where did that go? The money that we made from this, where did it go? It's always like every time we make a dollar, it's like, where'd it go?
Yeah.
We don't know where it go. But we do. But it just seems like, I don't know.
I feel like CFO in our, Minister of Finance, what's that CFO? Minister of Finance in our country is a very taboo position because a lot of times we've seen in the political arena that the CFO is very much so bullied by his party or her party. It seems as though either a premier is directly kind of shouldering a finance minister or they are the finance minister.
No, our premier is the finance minister.
Yeah, and it begs the question of like how transparent. Because if we have a problem with finance in this country, which we clearly do, like what can we do to fix it? Like what have we as taxpayers done to demand better finance, you know? And I mean, everyone keeps saying transparency.
We haven't done anything to demand better financing.
Mm-hmm.
We've just asked for it politely.
Yeah. And I think...
We don't demand it. We're not a people of demanding anything unless...
PLP took a step in the right direction because they released the entire budget.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I still feel like we should have an independent person to check these budgets.
This is not a PLP problem. No. This is everybody. Yeah, this is a Bermuda problem because this has been an issue since long before the UPP was even thought of.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder if maybe we need like an adjudicator or somebody who is completely nonpartisan and not a civil servant. Because a lot of times in this country, we forget that civil servants have been there for years. So a lot of these blunders, they were a part of throughout many different governments. It's not as always the case where a new government comes in and they fire the civil servant. You know, like sometimes these civil servants have seen party after party after party make these blunders. So it makes you wonder, like, do we have enough transparency on who these civil servants are? The wages. Because, I mean, if you look it up on the government website, you see the wages and stuff, but you don't know necessarily who these civil servants are. So all of these blunders get pegged onto the minister, right?
And that's not necessarily fair.
Yeah.
Because it's like punishing the general for the actions of a couple bad soldiers.
We, as a country, should have a bit more in-depth insight for our civil servants, especially when we have a history of mismanaging money and it's not changing regardless of which person is in power or which party is in power. So I feel like we should start hanging this on civil servants, and maybe we just need like a private entity or...
No, I don't think maybe. I think that the problem, one of the biggest problems that we face is it's always either someone from either side. We need, I would even bring in a foreigner. Like someone with a fresh set of eyes, that's non-biased, has no recollection, has no connection to anybody, is just strictly there to oversee what is going on and what needs to be done. Because it's like, I mean, my same problem with having the Speaker of the House being a member from the winning party. I don't agree with that. I think that should be somebody from neither. That should be an independent, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Put that Hollis up there. We like him, but
And I am against a premier holding a ministry.
Oh well, yeah.
As well, and it tends to always be, or typically always is,
finance.
Yeah, and it's other ministries, but you know, because I know Dunkley was in Minister of Finance.
Dunkley was Minister. What was? I know Paula was.
She was Minister of Finance.
What was Braun?
He wasn't Minister of Finance.
I don't think so.
No, Paula was his Minister of Finance.
Correct. Either way, look, regardless of who was the Minister of Finance, we can't blame the Minister of Finance for this because this isn't.
You can't blame them. I just feel like when
we can blame them for being oblivious.
Well, I feel like when you release a budget, right, you need to have in our case, I feel like we have given the luxury of our government kind of saying here's the budget and that's kind of it, and you have money that is duplicate payments made and 800 million going missing, and then 7 years. No.
Oh, you look with that? Oh,
yeah.
oh.
But and then several years down the line, we have an Auditor General saying, "Oh, look, it was a duplicate payment of 800,000 that was made," and it's like, I feel like we need to have another budget produced alongside the government's budget, and if they link up, you should have something to say, oh, okay, these make sense, because we can't continue to trust that this budget is accurate, because we've seen time and time.
Have we ever actually had an accurate government budget?
I don't, that's the point, I don't know. I feel like we don't know what is going on up there with the finances, because all of a sudden we had the OBA saying we put a hiring freeze, right, because we just don't have the money, right? And then we have now a PLP government coming in saying we have the money.
And the OBA, we have two ministers promising 100 jobs.
Yeah.
Well, one promising 101.
But what's saying is, how do you get that disconnect between, okay, the OBA is saying we don't have money, and the PLP is saying, well, the OBA has mismanaged money, and we have money. So we need to know what the disconnect is in finances between that, because if we can't continue as taxpayers to be in a country with such high cost of living, and continue to pay out these taxes and just not know where they go, and to find out blunders 3-4 years down the line.
That's another question I have.
7 years down the line.
Longer than that. That'll be 8 now. This is another question I have. Was Colonel Birch that said 101 jobs you'll provide with $1 million?
Did anybody say that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that Works and Engineering is having a hiring.
101 jobs with $1 million. Now, I know Wayne Kane said he would provide 100 jobs. I don't think that's a smart thing. I mean, whether you can do it or not is beside the point. I don't think that a specific number should be hit, because even if you provide 99 people with jobs, still, hey, you didn't get 100.
Well, it just comes out to, I remember he said that it was going to be part-time work at first.
Yes.
Right? But my thing is, I don't feel as though our government should be taking on job creation. Personally, I feel as though it should come down to the government kind of galvanizing the private sector to create jobs. Because you have a lot of young entrepreneurs around here who have very little support, who could create those 100 jobs like that. And it would be no skin off of the taxpayers' back. And I think that a lot of times in this country, we vote off of what the government can do for us.
Hell, they would have cultivated us, we can give people jobs.
Yeah, but the government should not be creating jobs, because it is a strain on the economy. And right now, 60% of all of our money, even more so, maybe more than 60%, is going to paying people's wages. And I feel as though if we're looking to dig our way out of debt, then our job as taxpayers, our job as members of this community is to galvanize the private sector to take that weight off of the public sector. It's no reason why our government should be the highest employer in this country.
Also, the government should be also looking for ways to not have to spend it. But remember what we said about we have an overflow of teachers?
Yeah, but that comes on to the same issue.
Yeah,
you're trying to.
Well, we're putting all this money into the teachers and everything, but what we should be doing is finding like into the private sector. Okay, we need to set like Well, we've talked. Everybody's been talking about minimum wage so everybody's blue in the face. I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon.
Well, the problem with minimum wage is this: if you give a minimum wage to a company and the company is not able to match that wage.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is that company is going to maintain their bottom line. So it's like when you implement a minimum wage, you have to be careful, because it's good to say, okay, now when you get a job, you make like, let's say $17 an hour minimum. That's nice, but it's now a matter of getting the job. Because it's nice to have a minimum wage, but if you ain't got no job, it don't matter.
This is true. But regardless of that, yeah, I agree with you in regards to getting the private sector involved, because I think the private sector could employ more people. I mean, it's got enough space. I mean, there's enough companies. I mean, I just remember what was it, 1,500 plus people that lost their jobs in Birmingham's when HBC bought Bank of Bermuda and Birmingham's.
Mm-hmm.
That was 1,500 people. That's literally almost 5-7% of the population. Any other country that's 5-7% of the population was unemployed, they'd be like, wait a second, what just happened?
Well, when you look at it right now, right, where we have untapped industries right now in the private sector, where you have arts, entertainment, and all of that
no one's doing anything with, except for apparently everybody under 30.
Yeah, and I feel like it's tons of jobs that could be created that could give back to the economy and give back to young people that we just are not exploiting because we get so caught up in, we want the OBA to give us jobs. We think the OBA should do that. We want the PLP. You should not put that on the government. It should be you saying to the government, oh, I have this venture. I think I can create 50 jobs if you back this venture. Or give me a grant or a government contract and I can give you 50 jobs. That's what we need more.
That could work.
We need more of that. And it can't be like, oh, well, we're going to spend $1 million to buy Sans 360. It's like, well, you know where that million could go?
I could think of a few places.
You could give a startup business $200,000. And I believe that they could make it work.
You could pay staff. You could pay staff for a few months over that. You could rent out a place and enough to get yourself ready to start making some money. You could keep that going.
Yeah,
that's plenty of money to do that.
Because I feel like in America, in our bigger economies, private sector is a bit too overrepresented. Like they actually control the government because they're so powerful. But it's like in Bermuda, we have the opposite effect, where our private sector is supremely underrepresented, and our public sector controls the government. And I feel as though that has been the issue that has led to mismanagement of funds going missing, funds not being used effectively, because you want to put your friend in that position, you want to put your friend here, you want to put your friend there. Or you don't want to rub the BIU the wrong way, you don't want to rub this person the wrong way, so you spend our money here. So our government ends up having to do a tap dance between the public sector, and the private sector always kind of gets lost in the skirt because they're underrepresented. Right now, the private sector is got the entire public sector on its back, paying taxes so that the public sector can eat. But
that should be vice versa. And on top of that, if we had a bigger emphasis on the private sector, then that would be more money coming in, that would be more money that would be going into taxes, and that would actually be able to chip away the debt.
And less money that we have to pay out to get back.
Exactly. Because the more people you have working, the more money going in, the less the individual person has to pay out, the lower things go down. So
yeah, because just imagine if we had a strong private sector that could step in, because you know how much times America does that? Like it leans on a private sector to take a hit here, and they give them grants here or cut her back. Let's say epidemic spreads, and you have a private sector company that is creating a vaccine, you know that America will lean on that private sector company and say, okay, the hit that you take giving us this vaccine now, we'll make it back.
Or even taking the needs of the private company into consideration. Because remember, like when they tried to propose the sugar tax in America, Coke and Pepsi said, all right, we're not going to do that, but tell you what, we'll give you 25%. We get to keep all of our employees, because if you put what you want, if we put you on, we're going to lose employees.
Yeah.
And they bow to the private sector, because the thing is, private sector employs the people.
It is the breath and the spirit of your industry. It links to all the things that young Bermudians and all the things that many Bermudians get frustrated with. Because they get frustrated with lack of innovation, lack of something new, lack of growth of industry, and that comes down to no support for the private sector.
Yeah, and if you keep putting more strain on the private sector, eventually it's going to collapse. And when the person who's giving you a piggyback's legs break, what happens to you?
And I feel like the word private sector is demonized too, because I feel like a lot of Bermudians, when they hear private sector, they hear foreign business, they hear
no, private sector is
us. Private sector is the people.
Private sector is buzz. Private sector is P-Tech and Phoenix. Private sector is all these people we buy our stuff from.
Anybody that's got a business out of their house, anybody that's got a business out of their car is private sector.
Our friend Mark in his gym, that is perfect example of a young person trying to start something. That is private sector. He's our age.
We private sector. And I feel as though a lot of times in the political arena, we hear public sector is for the people. We hear public sector. No, public sector is state. It is the government.
The private sector is the people. Yeah. At least it should be.
I don't understand. Like, I feel like we have a lot of things mixed up here. Where in Bermuda, we need to start to move forward. It's got to be a time where we realize, okay, we're coming to the brink. We're being put on the gray list. We're being threatened to be put on the blacklist. We're being lumped in with all the tax havens. We're missing money. We're mismanaging money. We're throwing millions away. What, 5.3 million into Sands 360. And all of that money could have been put into young startups.
And remember, that 5.4 is taxpayer money that is going into Sands 360, unless I'm mistaken.
Yes.
That is what the report said, though.
Yes.
So,
and fundraising, but I mean, I don't think that was the 5.3 million.
Fundraising is still taxpayer money, because where are they going to get the funds from?
That's true. True that. Yeah. True that. And I really do not understand why we as a people right now consider the unions who represent the state technically.
To the unions that we've been told by that to a blue in the face. The union needs to start representing the state and needs to start representing the people. I understand that there's people in the state, but it has to be a separation. And until there is, no one's going to take the union seriously.
I know you can say hotels and da-da, but I consider hospitality to be kind of a technicality. I feel like it works in the state and private sector. I really do, because
you know how many people don't even want to go to the union?
But
I was speaking to this young lady, and she was like, Trey, I'm not going to talk to the union. They're not going to even listen to me.
Well, before we get segued into our old friends, the union, because we make a separate episode about that.
We could go on that for hours. Either way, long story short, private sector, public sector. This right here is a public sector. This is private. Everybody is private sector, because that is the people.
But in Bermuda, it's more like the private sector is this low. Is that?
And eventually that is going to collapse, and the government's going to collapse on top of it, because both of them can't survive without each other, but too much strain being put on one.
But the public sector cannot survive without the private sector.
That's what I just said.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you said either one can survive. I feel as though it's.
You think private could survive without public?
Private, you can establish dumps.
I mean, how it is now.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I feel as though if push came to shove and you had to choose between one,
I'm going private.
Yeah, and I feel as though private sector needs to be reinforced, and I do believe that we as a people have to step out with accountability, given to our government about mismanagement of funds, and really look at how we could dig our way out of debt, and really look at how long we have allowed our civil service people to be overbloated. Like, because at the end of the day, we have unemployed people. So why are these private sector who has no jobs, people who are unemployed, forced to support this oversized public sector?
I ain't got nothing else to say on that.
Well, it's been This Type of News. I'm Dutch Perman.
Let us know what you think.
That's his name.
Yeah, that's what